Judy Kurnick is a contributing feature writer for the Argus Press, a local newspaper out of Owosso, Michigan, and also a member of the Daughters of Union Veterans of the Civil War. Judy's also a very talented seamstress whose specialty includes an ability to create accurate reproductions of Civil War clothing. Her talent is in demand by those involved in the growing Civil War reenactments held around the country each year. This talent, along with her other wonderful culinary talents, is what first drew Michigan Magazine to her Chesaning home. Experiencing Judy's wonderful Polish stuffed chicken breasts, we settled down shortly after to talk more about her passion for the Civil War and how an unusual sequence of events resulted in her being drawn into an historic re-interment of a Civil War veteran miles away in a forgotten Oscoda County cemetery between Mayo and Fairview. This Elmer Township cemetery was abandoned back in the very early part of this century, with all those buried relocated to family plots elsewhere, except for one, Civil War veteran D.C. Calkins, who passed away in 1899 at the age of 60. D.C. Calkins joined the 81st New York Volunteers on September 20th, 1861. After being mustered out in 1864, he eventually moved to Michigan and homesteaded Oscoda County in 1881, where he died 18 years later. No one really has all the answers to why D.C. Calkins wasn't moved from the Forest Cemetery when all the others were, except that no relative could be found to give the appropriate permission. Calkins' grave was apparently lost in the overgrowth in this forgotten cemetery, unattended until sometime in the 1980s, when Jack Shield, a veteran of World War II, found the grave and began tending it. The tending continued by Don McCosh, a retired Detroit Fire Department officer and the American Legion of Luzerne. At this time, nothing was known about the life and times of D.C. Calkins, until, as Judy Kurnick told us, Bob Dobski of the Oscoda County Herald stepped into the picture and began writing about this apparently forgotten grave, which resulted in Judy beginning her own intensive research. With her extensive connections, she'd keep Bob informed of any new discoveries. A very short time later, Judy's research was halted in its tracks when a letter was received in the office of the Oscoda County Herald from the great-granddaughter of D.C. Calkins, Dorothy Seeley Reed. As Bob tells us,
probably the most interesting and exciting part of the whole story for me was actually getting the family members involved. They stepped forward on their own. What happened is I day in August, went to the mail, as I always do, got my packet of mail, which is just like Christmas. Maybe you set the big packages to the last, or you rip into them first. And so with my mail, I always go through, and anything that looks like it's personal and might be of interest to the paper, I set those off for last and open up all the press releases that we get every day. And so I got through with those, and I went to the handwritten ones that are from people with some stories to tell or something. And of course I saw Judy's in there, so I knew what it was about, or what it would be about. So I opened that one up and read her progress report and how she had made some headway and found out some information on D.C. Calkins. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. And I said, that sounds good, and set that one aside and went through another few, and then got to Dorothy Reed's. Didn't know who she was, and of course opened it up, and there in front of me is D.C. Calkins' whole story, because she is a relative of his, and more or less just spelled out the whole story, and I just thought that was neat, because not only did the order in which I happened to open those letters just kind of made a natural progression of, okay, well, we're learning a little bit more through Judy's letter, and then open up Dorothy's, and bang, there's the whole story. And so, of course, I got about halfway through the letter, and I said, I can't take this anymore, and I called Judy up.
And he said, I have good news and bad news. And so we let him give me the good news first, which was that the great-granddaughter of D.C. Calkins had come forward. Up until this time, there was no one left in the area who even knew who this man was. So that was the good news, and then the bad news was that I couldn't have fun trying to find out who he was anymore, but that was good news, too, because I'd become really very involved in it. So I was thrilled that we found out who the man was. And as it's ended up, his name was Daniel Calkins. He entered the military under the 81st New York Volunteers out of Elmira in 1862 and served his 3 years right to the date when he was mustered out on September 20th. And he was 5'8" and had brown hair and blue eyes, and he went from being an unknown to someone that we knew, physical characteristics on, and just it's almost become as if he's part of my own family.
I gave Dorothy Judy's phone number and to allow her to contact her if she wished, and she did, and so the two of them began working on plans on what could be done and kind of reaching whatever agreements needed to be made or arrangements that need to be made. And they've kept me informed of what's happening as things develop.
It's amazing. I mean, a story like this doesn't come along very often, does it?
No. It's not only is it a neat story, it's spanned the years, so to speak. Yeah. More days I get up and really don't think about it because it's just there, and then something will come up and you say, okay, yep, time to, something's happening again on it.
Yeah. The sequence of events started nearly a decade ago, culminating in what would be a re-interment of D.C. Calkins with full Civil War honors, including participation by sons and daughters of Civil War veterans from throughout the state, the American Legion, and relatives of Daniel C. Calkins.
When it's all said and done and the procession is everything is taking place, what do you hope people will get out of this, and what do you hope this will bring to light? Or
well, two things. First of all, that they'll have an appreciation for the life that God has given them. I think everyone's greatest fear in life is that they'll not be remembered and that they'll be left alone. And that is, as a living person, and also the fear that when you die, that you'll just be forgotten. And then also that people will be able to see a man that really lived. The Civil War is so distant from us at this point, and that people will be able to really connect with the fact that this did happen and that these people suffered for the rest of their lives. Mr. Calkins was very badly crippled because of the illness from the Civil War, and had a really horrendous life, lived in poverty and pain and tremendous suffering. And just to be able to share in that, and his family will be there. About 30 members of his family will be there. So to come away from this, having been able to bring him back to the new cemetery where his son-in-law and 2 grandchildren are buried, and to know that things are just, that they're set right, that he's not alone. I don't know if you've been out to that cemetery, but it's a horrendously lonely place.
I wonder why he was left there, and one of the only ones, or if not the only one.
As far as they know, he is the only one. It's the only gravestone that's left there, and everyone has asked that question, from his grandchildren on down to all of us. And the only answer that comes back is that apparently there was no one that could be found to sign the papers to be moved. He homesteaded not very far from that cemetery. And the daughter-in-law of one of his personal friends, of Mr. Richardson, took care of the cemetery lot there for the family, for him, for years after he died, until she got so old that she couldn't go down and take flowers and things. But she maintained it for many years.
But now the new gravesite is at the fairly new Elmer Township Cemetery.
1926, I think, is the year.
But it's very well maintained. And,
extremely well maintained. So. Very pretty cemetery. All completely surrounded by Amish farms.
Right, heart of Amish country, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful place. And, he's going to have a very impressive service. It's nothing that, in getting involved in this, I didn't set out that it would be some big theatrical production, and I certainly hope that it doesn't turn out to be that. But it's going to be, I think, a bit overwhelming. It's going to be a joint service between the sons and daughters and the American Legion. And everything is it's a very somber, very somber service that we've set. I think it's going to be a very fitting tribute to the man. So And I have a feeling just something that he would have never ever expected. You know, everything that I've read about him in the pension requests and things, he was a very humble man.
Join us for a future edition of Michigan Magazine as we'll attend a pre-exhumation religious service and meet with the Calkins family members at the old abandoned Elmer Township Cemetery in northern Oscoda County. Then on Memorial Day 1999, attend the actual funeral services of Civil War veteran Daniel C. Calkins as he's finally laid to rest in the family plot at Kittle Cemetary.